Yo, what are you doing right now? We are going to get real about men's issues, who Jesus is, and who we are as men in Christ. We're going to hear Trey, Jeremy, Michael, and Brad break it down. These guys call themselves the Cussin Christians. All right, guys, what is going on?
Jeff?
What was that, Romper Room? I see
Hello.
Michael. I see Joey.
What?
Don't you remember Romper Room?
Romper Room.
Romper
You know,
Room?
That was before Jeremy's time.
She had a little.
Are you recording already? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, she had a little circle thing that she looked through. It was like supposed to be something that she could see. And she was talking to the TV and said, I see Joey,
Man.
I see Joey.
Oh, I remember that.
I hated those shows, but there was nothing else to watch.
You were glued
Did you
to
guys
him.
get Ray Rayner? Did you have Ray Rayner back in the day?
No.
No?
But like when I was a kid,
That was
you know,
on WGN, so that was up
oh yeah,
north.
I was kind of forced to watch Mr. Rogers stuff. I'm like, there's nothing else on,
Yeah.
and this dude's got puppets. I mean, it should be better than that, but it's
Those
fine.
puppets were weak, man.
Yeah, I hated
and the
that.
little train. I didn't like that.
sucked. That show sucked.
I know it did. Did you watch? Of course, Sesame Street's been around forever. Did you watch The Electric Company?
Yeah, didn't like it. I hated
I didn't
Zoom.
like-
Did you ever hear Zoom?
Zoom, 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 my zoom.
Yeah, hated that.
What about, you want to talk about an acid trip?
Yeah, I love talking
HR
about this.
Puff and stuff? Did you?
Oh man, HR Puff.
That was some
That
creepy-
little flute would talk
Somebody
to
was
you.
doing some acid. with
Yeah, I
it,
know,
with
right?
that.
Drug-inspired children's
It was, had
shows.
to be.
Hey, remember the trees in the
Oh, that
forest? The
creeped me
trees
out.
would grab you.
Alice in Wonderland, the whole movie. is,
Sure.
you know,
Never liked it.
about
Nope.
a guy's acid trip or whatever.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, think
man.
about it. Like, you go down
Well,
the
that's
rabbit
true.
hole, like, you got chasing the white rabbit, like,
you-
all that stuff.
Trying to think if do you remember shows like the Banana Splits?
I don't know any of these shows you guys are talking about.
HR Puff and stuff. You don't know that?
dude.
Mr. Rogers is literally the only
Okay,
show you
wow.
know.
think of the word puff and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, I'm getting old, just so we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And I don't know any of these shows.
What
Do you know the jingle to HR Puff and stuff?
No.
HR puff and stuff.
Who's your friends when things get rough?
Yep. I remember it now that she's singing.
Wow. They came up with some, like, original
Yeah.
tunes back then.
Yeah, there was this castle, this wicked witch. She wanted the magic flute. The magic flute talked to you.
What was the witch's name?
Gruella? No.
No.
What was her name?
Witchy Poo?
Witchy Poo. Yeah, it was Witchy Poo.
Witchy poo.
That would be controversial today, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Somebody be
that was
offended
the
by that.
old, what
You
was
can't
that?
say witchy poo.
She doesn't identify as a poo.
Get me going.
What was that? The Sid and Marty
Marty
Croft,
Croft.
the Croft guys that made all those shows.
Yeah, they were doing acid. I know they were.
Back in the 60s, acid was kind of like the thing. All these CEOs are doing these like guided ayahuasca journeys. And they go out and they like basically get in like a tent with like a spirit guide, like somebody who guides you through your trip.
Oh my god!
And they take ayahuasca and they just trip for like 12 hours.
That's
and they come out
scary.
and
It's
they
weird.
supposedly have like it like helps them like think forward.
So Jesus isn't involved in it.
Jesus ain't,
no,
Jesus
this
ain't
is
part
this,
of that.
this is not guided
This
by
is
the Holy
Eastern
Spirit.
mysticism.
No, it's spirit.
The religion of
California.
ayahuasca.
Yeah.
Not holy, but it's spirit.
That's a cool name. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, they go out into the desert and they get in like this little like Indian tent looking thing.
Yeah.
All right.
That's not a good sell. Let's go sit in the desert and
Yeah.
get high on mushrooms. I don't know.
Well, did you remember?
I don't even know what ayahuasca is. It could be like
Sounds like a city somewhere in Florida.
Casey on Yellowstone went out and had his magic
Oh,
moment
yeah, that's
under
right.
that tree and,
Yeah.
and sat out there waiting for the wolf to come.
Dude,
and
that was
all.
weird, though. I don't know
That
if it
was
was worth
freaky. Yeah.
that's kind of what this thing is.
Yeah.
Like, they kind of go out there and like
Find yourself.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Rogers
Go
did
find
something in a tent. It's like a dark, you have no light, no nothing. You just sit in there for like,
That's what this is. That's what I'm talking about. It's like it's a dark tent that you get inside of, and it's like heated up, and it's hot, and you sweat, and
Boy,
Yeah,
that's scary.
Sounds like when you lose power after a hurricane.
Florida.
Dark and you
Pretty
just
much
sweat.
Bear
And
Island.
like,
And the way the hurricane season's starting, we're going to be
Here we go.
experiencing that a lot this
Dude.
year.
They say the water at this time this year is very, very warm.
Yeah, Don was talking about that the other
That's what he
day.
was
The
telling me,
water, the layer of water down low in the Gulf Stream is the highest temperature it's been in like 50 years.
Great.
So it's going to be conducive. I'm glad we're not doing any outdoor stadium events.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll just,
Maybe borrowing your generators again soon.
yeah,
Yeah,
come on.
I got to change the oil in them.
You guys, somebody
norm.
told my mother-in-law
Still
that
find out.
WTF in a text is, wow, that's fantastic. So now all of her texts are are awesome.
WTF.
What do you
Your
do?
mother.
Wow, that's fantastic. All right.
Gotta send us some screenshots. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Wow.
It's probably my brother-in-law.
That's awesome.
So it's been a couple of weeks. We're coming off. Wow, we're coming off this event with Mr. Tebow that was here, and we were talking about working out. And I saw the pictures of you with Tebow, dude. Your guns are about as big as Tebow's, man.
Not when you see the rest of them, like different angles and
They're
stuff.
bigger than our thighs.
Yeah. I mean, that was a good shot.
Yeah.
Like that was a good picture, but when you see the other shots of him, dude, he's on another level for sure.
I know.
Like, okay, dude.
I know.
Keep
And
working
I've
out,
said this
man.
before, dude. That's who I picture my Jesus was. That's what Jesus looked like to me.
You think he was ripped?
Yes, I do. I truly believe that because he was a contractor. Everything was done by hand. He's lifting heavy beams. He's doing, and I think he was jacked. And the other reason I think he was jacked is because they said most men would not have been able to go through the scourging, and he was able to get through.
He was able. He survived.
He survived the scourging.
A little help from the Holy Spirit, maybe.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure he was.
That's a good point. Did he, or was he still fully man at that? I don't know.
Well, it's like all the depictions of Samson, or that he's looks like Tim Tebow, like he's ripped. But I don't know if that's true, because it was always when the Spirit of the Lord came on Samson is when he did these mighty feats of strength.
Right.
So he may not have looked like that, but we like to.
Oh, yeah,
we
like
want him to be the superhero, so we make it look like that.
Yeah.
Oh, and the other thing I think, when Jesus was on the cliff and all the religious leaders were going to try and grab him and he walked past him.
Yeah.
I think he walked past him like,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, right.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Try and take me. Because I think he was jacked. I really do.
Our first big event of the year. Just, I don't know. Let's have some takeaways, and I've got the takeaways from that night's about the topic I wanted to explore. But a lot of time, effort, and energy went into setting that up, and the man came in, and I looked at him, and it was like someone that I'd known forever. It was unexplainable how genuine and how authentic and how just this light shining from his eyes. It was mesmerizing to me, and it wasn't about his celebrity. It was about he's talking to me, and it's like I'm the only person there with him, and it struck me so hard. And my takeaway from that, other than the hundreds of hands that went up, as I peeked around the corner when he did it. I looked.
I peeked too. Somebody put their hand up.
Somebody put their hand up. So
Nice.
But, yeah. So anyway, what was your takeaway from the night, guys?
Well, didn't he say
the grace for the family experience?
When he walked in, you said, "Hey, what can we do for you?" And he said, "I'm here for you, man.
Yeah.
What can I do for you?"
We'd worked so much, and I spoke about this yesterday. Every week I had a call with his quote-unquote advanced team. And I decided that we need an advanced team, man.
Okay.
It just sounds too cool, right?
Sure.
But we're trying to just set it up. Pop, pop, pop. I want him to walk away with this great experience, because we're going to work with him again in 2.5 months. Mm-hmm. And so I'm keyed up 10 minutes. I mean, I get the text from his guy, Kevin. We're on our way. All right, he's 10 or 15 minutes away from the airport. And then at that time, a King Center person taps me on the shoulder. We need you to come address a situation out front.
Okay.
You
And I'm
should've
like,
sent me, dude.
holy crap.
You should have sent Michael.
You should have sent me. I would have addressed it.
Anyway, so the group's sitting there waiting for him to come in, and I run to the front of that theater in the lobby, and I addressed the situation. It wasn't as major as what they were putting it out to be, and then I'm sprinting back, and I literally walk
What
up.
was the situation? Because I don't.
It had to do with someone thinking they had free tickets, someone thinking they had a VIP pass, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they were not. It was just misunderstanding, and so I get back to that door a minute before he walks in. And I'm like, that would suck. I put all this work, and I'm not there to greet him, the first person to greet him when he walks in the door, And he walks in, and we do all the hugs and great to see us and introduce him to all the people and stuff. And then he looks at me, I look at him, and I go, what do you want us to do? And he just immediately said,
I'm here for you.
brother, I'm here for you. you tell me what to do. And I'm like, oh, I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
There was no ego with this guy anywhere whatsoever. He's the same, and the guy was real, and I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved every bit of it.
I mean, I've met a couple celebrities where you feel like they can't wait to get on to the next thing. But I watched him there were at least 100 people in line to take pictures with him at the VIP thing.
Yeah.
Every person that came up to him, he was just like shaking their hand, looking them in the eye. You know, people in wheelchairs, he was bending over talking to them. And I thought, man, that's not easy to do that for an hour straight.
Right.
To act like you're interested in every single person. But he did it. I mean, he was definitely as advertised.
Right.
But when you have the mind of Christ, you're in this world to preach the good news.
Right.
And the gospel is the good news. Are we here for ourselves, or are we here as ambassadors to preach the good news? Going into all the world and preach the gospel.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, he's an amazing dude. I didn't realize that he grew up with the background he grew up in, with his dad and his family and all that. I had no idea. I just knew him from football, ESPN, all that stuff.
Yeah,
So
and he didn't stray.
No, and I got to tell you, like, for him to stay that way through all, I mean, his celebrity was way bigger than mine back then. You know what I mean? And I had a celebrity at that point. Like, I mean, if I walked through West Virginia, a mall, anywhere, people knew who I was. This guy was like 10 times above that. You know what I mean? 100 times above that. And for him to keep his head on straight like he did was pretty amazing. I also thought his point on passion was pretty cool. I mean, like, what passion actually means and what it means to be passionate about something.
Yeah, he said that I guess the Latin root for passion is to suffer. Like, it means to suffer. So, like, what are you talk about? I'm passionate about music. I'm passionate about this or that. That means you're willing to suffer for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look at your life and see what are you really passionate about. And is it worth suffering for?
Right.
That was really good.
I thought it was interesting too, and I'm going to call a bunch of people out right now. But the moment Tebow's done, he gives this big speech about passion, and everybody's fired up, and what are you willing to suffer for? And here we are getting ready to sing one last worship song,
And they left.
and they freaking left.
I know, that pissed me off.
It's like you couldn't suffer. You weren't willing to wait in line to get out of the parking lot.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of
one more.
wondered. I kept wondering how many people were there just because they're Florida Gators fans, or because they're football fans. I recognize this wasn't the same crowd as like the Zach Williams.
It wasn't.
It wasn't because I thought there's probably 30%, 40% of the people there that are not
just-
church. They're
just there for
because
football and him.
So I didn't really expect the same thing from the crowd is what we had with Zach Williams. But
I had a conversation last night at this event I went to, and I was there, and someone introduced me to this guy, and I shook his hand, and he kind of looked at me a little different. And he goes, "So what do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm in the ministry." And he goes, "You were at the Tebow event." And then he says, "That was effing amazing," right? and he just kept going off on that.
great.
But he goes, "I went, and it blew me away, and I raised my hand."
Nice.
And it was cool, and he said, "How can I get involved with Gainesville?" And I went, "Dude, all right." And anyway, long story, it was worth it for him that night. But there were I heard a little bit of feedback going, I was expecting him to talk more about Florida Gator football. And he goes, "But I loved it."
yeah.
Another person said that to me. I was expecting to be more about. He talked more about his pro days than he did his college days, but I loved it. And that story about the inmate, and then that story about the box and the kid on the road in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Man, it just yanked my heart. And I'm like, that's why we do these things. But
Right.
you're right. When people started that last song, I was like, come on, man, come on.
Yep.
And but what can you do?
I think it's amazing that the guy was given such a platform, and now he's using it, and he's purposely not talking about football. He could do speeches
Right.
about football.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd sell out probably more than he sells out for
Yeah.
Jesus. I mean, if you think about it.
Probably so.
I will say, though, the story about the kid, when the guy kept preaching with the crowd of 5,000 that didn't show up.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I started crying. Like, and I don't cry. I'm not Trey. I mean, no offense. But I don't cry a lot. You know what I mean?
I don't either.
And I mean, I just couldn't help it. It was like, I mean, I was like, just inside of me, it was just like,
Yeah.
I was just, and it was not, it was, I don't even know if there was just like joy was really what it was.
Right.
That, and what an example of, you really just don't know that when you follow God's calling, what it'll lead to. I mean, this
Right.
guy preached to no one. And come to find out, the guy's going to go commit suicide. He finds a tree to get out of the rain. He hears the choir singing to nobody. So then he gets closer so he can hear, but out of eyes, he couldn't see him. And he listens to the whole speech, ends up doing an altar call to a crowd of nobody. But there was somebody that actually heard it. And then years later, we don't know how many years, the guy shows up on his deathbed to tell him, hey, you changed my life and now I'm working for the Lord. After he got thrown out of his house, a Christian family then takes him in. I mean, that whole story,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah.
It was powerful.
It's crazy how God connects the dots somehow. If you lean on his word, it always comes back. It connects the dots. I'm gravitated to a verse from 1 Thessalonians. The words from Paul to the Thessalonians where they say, where he says, your faith in God has gone forth everywhere so that we need not say anything. The way Tebow handled himself, or the way that and you look at someone and you say, man, they are in touch with the Holy Spirit inside of them. And sometimes you don't even need to say a word.
Right.
Right? And I felt that from the second he walked in. I'm looking at the photographs that Nick did. Nick, the photographer that was backstage and had all access, he played against him in college. And Nick played a little pro ball like you, and he looks like a beast.
Yeah.
But the pictures that Nick took, I'm looking at Tebow interacting with people, and he is just zoned in on everybody.
Yeah, when my father-in-law was there with a couple of his friends of 40 plus years, it was really cool that they were all there together because they're big sports fans. But when they got over there to get a picture, my father-in-law was in a wheelchair and he can't really stand or balance himself without a walker. Tim helped prop him up, he pulled him up out of the chair with his buddy on the side.
Oh man,
They were holding him up for the picture. It was really cool.
Please send me that.
Yeah.
Please send me that picture.
It was awesome.
When he made the reference to, am I passionate about a pigskin that's laced together?
What is he doing? What he does? What all ultimately are we doing this for? For ourselves? For Trey to be, on the stage with Tebow? No. To bring the gospel, and that's what we're doing this for. Is for the gospel to that none should perish.
Right.
That's God's heart. None should perish. So I guess we need to get that mindset like he had, that I'm doing everything that Christ has told me to do, and I'm not doing it with ego. I'm not doing it with boastfulness. I'm doing it with humility. I'm doing it with love. I mean, he radiated that, and that's what you're talking about. You could see the radiation.
He didn't have to say it. He didn't have to. He showed it. It flowed out of him, and it complements the calling of the Great Commission of go out and tell the world. But there's sometimes the world looks at you. How many times have you heard that Christians are just hypocrites? Because we say one thing and
We get called hypocrites on a weekly basis.
all the time. And there's sometimes the actions, and you see the Spirit flowing out of somebody that leaves a bigger mark, or how they handle themselves in a tough situation or in controversy.
Again, I know we're talking about Tim Tebow, but what about the story that, here he is, he's, New England Patriots, has a chance to make $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
For a couple hours worth of nothing, just showing up and saying hello, right? And Belichick had asked him not to make waves.
Yeah, just
calls Belichick. Belichick says, hey, no, I'd rather you don't do that. He gives $1 million up only to get cut later. But what did he say? I slept well at night.
Yeah.
I can sleep well with that. I mean, could you do that? If I called you today and said, hey,
Trey,
I need you to come meet this group of guys for $1 million or $100,000, $10,000.
Yeah.
Right? Put it into money that would affect us, $10,000. But it's going to piss Michael off.
That's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
Write the check to Trey Etheridge.
I'm just saying, right?
Just kidding.
No, I'm serious. Think about that, right?
I make it to Herbert King Etheridge III. That's my legal name.
Well, that's
Your middle name's King?
Yeah, man, I didn't know that.
No.
dude, that's a lot of humility though.
Yeah.
to do that.
Oh yeah.
Well, especially he's got an agent in his ear who, by the way,
sure.
does get paid by commission.
He gets paid that 10% or whatever it is.
And he probably worked to get that deal done.
Yeah.
Actually, he probably already negotiated.
He
from
probably like
$3 to $1 million.
a month of going back and forth to figure it out. Hey Tim, I got something for you. Oh.
Yeah.
And I've always said that this is one of the things I've heard this years ago, that Christ would have still died if I was the only person on earth that he had to go to the cross for.
Yeah.
And I want to get back to you, Jeremy. This little guy here gave his heart to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
That's just gotta just fill your soul, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does. I mean, when we talked about it in the car, and he's like, no, I already believed, but like I got the chance to say the prayer for the first time, so I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So that's super cool. I mean,
awesome.
That made my night. I mean, and I was supposed to bring Ashley, and we couldn't get a babysitter. So, I mean, think about that. That's why he came. It wasn't, I wasn't planning that the whole time.
Yeah.
Well, that's the power of the Holy Spirit when we do these events, even in Tim's, in his stories, when you're glorifying God in these events, and you hear these stories later of how people were impacted. You're still hearing stories from 2 or 3 years ago of people that were impacted. It's like, that's when you realize you're doing something that's bigger than you. It's bigger than anything that we could do in our own strength. So we're moving in the power of the Holy Spirit and letting him do his work and pointing people to Jesus. And that's what Tim does. That's what we're trying to do here. And that's what these events are about. And it's amazing when you actually hear people say that they were touched, or they didn't have a desire to drink after that night, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I'm hearing these stories all the time, and it blows me away.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of guys or people, there was women there too, that probably didn't raise their hand, but the word does not come back void. So it's in them.
Yeah.
And then somewhere down the road, something's going to happen where somebody's going to go, hey, or they're going to be going through something going, yeah, I remember what Tim said, or I remember what Trey said, and it's like somebody's going to water it.
They're going to start asking questions,
Right.
and then they're going to come to that revelation of their need, and then boom, that's when the Spirit just takes off. There's a couple that came that aren't believers. My wife's known them for a long, long time, and they're huge gators. And they came because they're huge gators. And afterwards, I saw them in the lobby. And they're not, I would say they're acquaintances of mine. They've known Donna for longer than me. Mm-hmm. And when I saw them, the first thought was, all right, but I didn't push anything. They looked at it and they said, this is pretty powerful. And I went, well, I hope you had a great takeaway from tonight and you enjoyed it. And I just thank you for supporting our ministry. Mm-hmm. And I left it at that. And I'm looking forward to that opportunity where I see these people in public, or I have a chance to meet or whatever, and just say, so what was your takeaway? I want to have that conversation. What was your takeaway on that night?
Well, I think that's one reason we keep doing this podcast, right? We've talked about it before. I mean, it gets hard some Fridays to get up and get over here and get us all together. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Last night, I was sitting there thinking, man, I had Juneteenth off, so I didn't get to work on Wednesday. Here's Friday's coming up. Like, I have something this afternoon I have to do. So I'll get 3 hours of work in today, which, when you're working for yourself, it's a big deal, right? And I was like, maybe I just call the guys, see if Franz can do it. But then I thought about the story of the preacher in the crowd, and I was like, man, that's why we're doing this. Yeah. We're not doing this for money. I mean, it costs us more money and time than it does anything.
It does.
But just hopefully one person, and we've got the stories, right? We have there's a guy in Kentucky, I think, that started listening to it.
Oh, yeah, Caleb up in Kentucky. We got our buddies in Columbus, Ohio that are listening in. We got Corpus Christi. We got California. No, we got, I mean, there's someone listening that, man. And
we get people all over the world listening.
Yeah, we're in 48 countries. So, what do you think about? Was it Nathaniel that Jesus saw under the tree? The one guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and later on he talks smack about Nathaniel too. That's what I love about it.
And Jesus looked at him and said, "I heard you. I saw you. You were screaming out." But yeah, you're absolutely right, Chef. It's hard. I'm taking a break the next couple of weeks. I've been burning at both ends. It's more mental than it is physical, because my mind, with everything going on. And guess what? 2 days after Tebow, we had 200 and something men show up at our church for the men's breakfast. And Jason Shack from the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, who's someone I just love. I haven't known him really long time, but he gave an amazing message, and it was crazy. I called him 2 days before the concert, or before the Tebow event, because I had someone say, hey, I've got these 8 tickets and I can't go. So I called Jason, and he goes, do you mind if I use these in an evangelical way? And well, of course not.
Please, yeah.
And he goes, well,
We'd hate to see you do
I
that.
hate to see you do that. He goes, I told him, I said, why don't you give it to some of the FCA guys, the high school students? That's what I was thinking, right? He goes, man, I could, but there's a couple of men that are in my son's life that are coaches that are really struggling, and I just don't think they're believers. I would love for them to come. And then 2 days, well, it was Saturday when he spoke at our breakfast. He pulled me aside before and said, I got to tell you, remember the 2 guys that I gave these tickets to? I go, yeah. They were moved to tears, and they said they want to sit down with me next week. Bam.
Wow.
You know, and so Jason, being a pastor for 15 years and, you know, heading up Fellowship of Christian Athletes, is going to water those seeds that were planted on Thursday night. And
Very cool.
The Lord's going to harvest them in a big way. So
awesome.
it's really cool.
Yeah. When we make ourselves available to the Lord, you know, it's what he does is so far beyond anything that we could ever do.
Amen, man.
And so I don't know. I just think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And that was the one thought I left thinking about was how often do I not listen, and how often do I not just do?
Isn't that true?
Like how often do I put my own, whatever in front of that?
Right.
Insert whatever, right? Like, do I think, oh man, like, how often do you just not do? Like,
Or how often do we doubt and say, well, me being there is not going to make any difference?
exactly.
But you never know. If you're there, God can use you, your presence, or you encourage somebody or whatever it is. God, it's like, I just want to be available for him to work through me.
And how often do we actually take the time to listen? That's the other thing. Like, how often do I just stay so busy, that I just don't even take time to listen, or take time to pray, I catch myself doing that all the time right now. I pray at night, and I'll fall asleep praying at night, and I woke up this morning praying. It's kind of like the prayer just went through the night and woke up to
That's
it,
good. Yeah.
So it's a good thing, but like then today as I get busy, how often will I take 5 minutes to just say, hey, let me center myself for a minute here and hear what you have to say versus what I have to say.
Do we trust him enough? Yesterday I got explosive dealing with this
Sure.
for the last 3 weeks. I haven't been able to get my Apple ID. I keep going in.
Oh, no.
And going in the internet, forgot ID, whatever. Apple, I forgot whatever. Going in and said, oh, by this date, you will be able to, by this date. And it kept going. I was like, okay, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. And then, so I'm on my way home from Miami, and I thought, well, I should just try it now. It's a long drive. And it says, these are the instructions that are going to be sent to your phone. Okay. And nothing was sent. And the reason nothing was sent was because I lost internet. So I get home and...
Hey, you're getting fired up right now.
Wait till yesterday. So then...
Wait till yesterday. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, wait till yesterday. Oh, gosh.
That's what I meant.
That's messed up, man.
You are messed up, dude.
I was like... it was like 8 o'clock at night. And then I get an email the next morning. Your such and such, I forgot, was canceled at 12:54 a.m. Ooh. I was like, okay, I got to start all over again. And it's because of this freaking thing. So yesterday, I'm like, I'm using 2 phones. This one I can call and text, but the other one has the apps. And I finally said, I got home and I was angry at God. I'm like, why are you allowing this? What is going on? I was just, cussing Christians. And I called the support and I said, why is this happening to me? And she goes, thank you very much, but I'll tell you why. And she was wonderful. And she said, just go here. And I went there and I changed my Apple password on my old phone and it transferred to my new one. I said, why? Because I was on support 3 times with other people. Oh. And it was like, okay, why? Why was I so angry about this piece of garbage that controls our life? And my point about that was I didn't trust him. I think he was trying to strip away some stuff going, how are you really locked into this? Or are you locked into me is what the message I got after all that ordeal.
I can relate to you just with this spiritual battle we're in because we had 2 amazing events last week. And we reached a lot of people, and then Satan kind of raised his head. and I know he hates what we're doing.
Of course.
And I'm coming down from the adrenaline, and I just feel tired. And then, sure enough, a family thing popped up, and I kicked it into overdrive of how Trey can fix it, and it got worse.
No.
And it got worse, and finally, I just disappeared. I actually came and sat right there for about 3 hours, just alone to pray, and I felt the Lord say, you need to identify what's going on here. And this isn't about your family. It's about Satan trying to use family to insert something negative, doubt, and all these, and anxiety and stress and everything else. And after praying there for about 2 hours, I came in here and, was able to address it through the Holy Spirit that was really talking to me. And all of a sudden, things just kind of started dissipating, and my mind was cleared and was able to go. And we let these outside forces, or it's one outside force, work on things through that, or someone dear to you. And the most dangerous weapon we have is the tongue. And when we speak, and if we don't speak well, it can hurt and destroy. And I lost my passion for a little while because I was fatigued, and I just wasn't recognizing the signs and chalking it up to, let's get back to Trey trying to fix things and make things right, and it didn't work. Let me ask you, it was Father's Day weekend. We had the video testimonials at the show. Any takeaways from that with the students and the ladies talking about their husbands and fathers?
Well, even one of the testimonies came from the first event, the Micah Tyler event, where her husband had been drinking and was struggling, and something happened to him at that event where he made a change that night.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a believer, and maybe he didn't know Micah Tyler's music or anything.
Yeah.
But he was there, and God moved.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even in those testimonies, and who knows what seeds were planted from that video, but even in that, you saw the fruit of God moving in that event. So that was really cool.
Yeah.
I think it just, if nothing else, it just reinforced the role that men are supposed to play in the family.
Yeah.
From a biblical perspective, not, worldly. And that when the man changes and that heart set changes and he starts driving the ship and, alongside the wife, don't get me wrong, but like the ship goes in the right direction. It's because that's the way it's designed. And
that's the whole thing that I've been trying, that's been just welling up in me, and I've been talking about it, and I prayed about it during the final, I mentioned it when we had the microphone time, and that's, God is a God of order. And I've said this, that our earth is 23.5 degrees tilted, and a 0.5 degree in one direction, we'd freeze to death.
Yep.
And a 0.5 degree in another direction, we'd burn up. He's a God of order. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. Spring, summer, fall. It's such a thing that's been percolating me, and I can't get rid of it. And that is, when we put our lives in order as a father, if we seek him first and all his righteousness, then all things will be added unto us. God first, then our wife, then our kids, and then whatever else down below, job, fishing, hunting, golf, guitar playing, whatever you want to. Do you put that first, or do you put God first? Because when you're in that order, and I've been out of that order, I know this is truth for me. When I'm out of that order, things don't go right.
It's not hard. It probably, you ebb and flow in and out of that as a Christian, or at least I do. I mean, I have days where I have my orders and my priorities correct. I mean, I definitely do. I have days when they're not correct. Those days don't go as well.
Exactly.
And then it's like at the end of the day, you're like, why didn't this day go well? Well, I wasn't thinking correctly. I had my priorities just weren't straight.
But with my strength of my relationship with God now, not like it was years ago, but now it's like I was able to come through that and go, okay, Lord, show me what you're trying to show me in this. And it all hasn't come out yet. I'm still in my quiet time reflecting on that. And maybe it's this, is this your Lord, or am I your Lord, And where was the anger from? The frustration, waiting 3 weeks to get it's like, before I would have just said, screw you. Living a Christian life is BS, man. It's hard. But now it's like, okay, I'm humble enough to say, show me what you're trying to show me in all this.
Yeah.
And we had 1,800 people or so in that King Center, and Mr. Tebow brought it. The worship band from Church at Vieira did an amazing job. We had the great testimonies. You know, one thing that was so powerful to me were the 6 or 7 students that looked at that camera and just said, "Dad, it's important that you understand who you are in Christ. It's important to me. I've learned lessons watching you and how I'm going to handle things." One of the young men said, "I see how my dad treats my mom, and it inspires me that when I find a wife one day, I'm going to treat her like my dad treats my mom."
That's awesome.
Not everybody can say that,
Right?
But this, and I think it really, I love that kid, and I think it really says a lot that our kids watch everything we do, and if they see the Lord shining from our eyes, like we saw it from Tebow, coming out of Tebow's eyes the other night. If they see our kids see that coming from our eyes, the difference it will make in our homes, communities, and whatnot. But to hear those kids talk about that, and to hear the wives talk about that, and I know most of those wives pretty personally. The one, Sue, whose husband is a supporter of our ministry now, but he was the one that was drowning in the bottle. Came to the first men's breakfast, and I met him for the first time, and he was drunk at 7 a.m. And now he's 18 months sober. He's lost 50 pounds. He is heading up an organization to help finance Christian outreach programs and things like that. And we've been having some great talks about how we can partner with them. And the Lord moved him in a huge way. And I thought it was important for her to be able to share that, because I remember the despair she was in when she called me and said, "Can you meet with my husband?" And now you can see her. She's a different person. It's really cool.
That's cool.
Guys, great first event of the year. I'm taking a couple of weeks off. We're going to do one more podcast next week, and then I'm going on a cruise, and I need some downtime.
I got my baseball trip.
And you got your baseball trip coming up.
Nice.
But we're going to regroup. September 5th, we got the man Tim Tebow going to be joining us with Zach Williams in Gainesville, Florida, the University of Florida, the O'Connell Center, between 7,000 and 8,000 people. And we are going to bring revival and the gospel to a college campus like never before. And we just hope you'll join us. If the whole state of Florida is going to converge on Gainesville, and we want you there. It's called the Break the Chains Through Grace College Experience. Zach Williams, Tim Tebow. We've got Gary Miracle's going to join us to talk about the fork. To lead off. We also have, I can't say his name yet, but we have a very prominent Florida Gator football player that's going to be a part of the night. And we might actually have a couple of other surprises. So the tickets are on sale at Ticketmaster.com. It's Thursday night, September 5th, University of Florida. So all you Gators want to come out, and we're going to make a difference on a college campus. First time we tried it. But, well, guys, once again, awesome stuff. Glad to be back in the studio with you. We'll be back next week for another edition of the Cussin Christians. Until then, I'm Trey.
Michael.
Brad.
I'm Jeremy.
And I'm going to say it again. We are the
Cussin Christians.
Let's go.
Oh, man. You had to go there, huh?
West Virginia.
Did you ever see that movie?
What?
Dude.
You never saw Deliverance?
Deliverance.
It will change your life.
Not in a good way.
Yeah. Dude, that one scene.
Oh, no. I never felt more relief in my life than when I saw Burt Reynolds with that bow through the trees with that bow cocked. I'm going, oh, thank God.
Have you seen